So earlier this week, Matt Lafleur had a talk with lots of different reporters, and I covered some things from that talk, but it was pretty long, about 30 minutes. So I didn't really get to everything, but this video I want to focus on what Matt Lafleur had to say about this defense, the reasons that Matt Lafleur decided to keep Joe Barry around coming into this next season in 2023. Now Joe Barry has been here for 2 years, going into his third year, and I think that near the end of last season, especially before the final 5-game stretch, most Packers fans were wanting Joe Barry to no longer be the defensive coordinator. And if it weren't for those final 5 games, the defense sort of turning things around, playing much better, at a much higher level consistently, I don't think Joe Barry would still be the Packers defensive coordinator. And so I want to come in here and read sort of the reason that Matt Lafleur decided to keep Joe Barry around and sort of how the Packers are looking forward to defense coming into 2023, because I feel like offense has been a lot of the focal point, just with Rodgers, of course, going to be traded to the Jets, Jordan Love taking over, but we do need this defense to consistently play well if we want the Packers to, play at a high level, of course. So first off here, I want to show you this quote. This is from, I got this quote from obviously the interview he did, but this was posted at PackersNews.com, article by Pete Doherty. So here it is from Matt Lafleur. Our defense was getting better. It was progressing, Lafleur said at the NFL owners' meetings, referring to the play down the 2022 season stretch. I thought Joe was doing a good job of communicating with our players. I thought our staff was doing a great job together, putting our guys in a better situation, having just more clarity on what it is we wanted to be in our play style, and I thought it got better. I felt like that was in the best interest of us to bring all those coaches back. So Matt Lafleur noting the progression that we saw that in the final 5 games, that this defense started to force more turnovers, started to be more consistent. There was that one game that I think before this final 5-game stretch where the Packers got destroyed on the grounds for 363 yards against the Eagles, which was not good, not a good performance there. But the Packers did turn things around, and so Matt Lafleur seems to be confident enough in the final 5 games to say that he thinks the Packers can sort of carry what they had at the end of the 2022 season into 2023. The thing is, if we look back to the year prior, we had that great game against the 49ers on defense in that playoff game where the Packers lost because the offense could not get things done. But the defense played really, really well, and I think for me, that's why I thought going into 2022, this defense was going to be a top 5 defense, and that just was not the case. I think we were more so around 15 or 16 when it came to scoring defense. That definitely hurt us. I think if the defense had played as they did in the final 5 games the entire season, we probably would have made the playoffs. But Matt Lafleur, at least, he seems confident enough in the final 5 games to think that for whatever reason, that the play that happened at the end of the final 5 games can continue into 2023. Let me read this now. Lafleur is also banking on the lesson Barry learned late last season, that simpler is often better. There are plenty of coaches in the league who espouse simplifying, because the fewer calls on the menu, the better the players will know the adjustments to anything they see. A call might be far from ideal on a given play, but at least everyone will know what to do. You saw the effects of that, Lafleur said, of the Packers' improved play in the final third of the season, and I thought our guys were able to go out there and play a little faster and execute at a higher level. And that was from Pete Doherty of PackersNews.com. So Matt Lafleur wants to sort of continue the simplification of the defense. He seemed to say that, later in the season, the Packers had simplified things a little bit more on defense, which allowed the guys to play a lot faster, less thinking, more just sort of reacting. And then going off of this, of simplifying this defense, I want to read this Twitter thread that sort of goes more into the coverage schemes of the Packers. That's definitely not my strong suit. I understand the basics of it, but not really the intricate details. But I found someone who I follow on Twitter, great Packers account if you want to follow it. I'll link it down below to this thread. His name is Sam Holman, Sam_D Holman on Twitter, and he seems to have a good understanding of defensive coverage and the things the Packers were doing. So I want to share what he had to say because I thought it was pretty interesting. I saw it earlier today or yesterday, and I thought I would share it here to go along with this. So here it is, one of his first tweets. So he says this quote got a lot of run already, but it was one of the more interesting parts of the interview to me. Based on the structures they played on defense, simplifying meant going back to their base install coverage stuff. That's cover 2, quarters, cover 8, the stuff they were playing in preseason. So Sam Holman sort of mentioning, or he puts this quote here where Matt Lafleur talks about sort of simplifying the defense and going back to sort of their base stuff that was sort of the original plan. And then he goes on here next and says they essentially returned to a purer Fangio-style system. Pre-bye, they were using more disguise, single high, with more penetration up front. So single high safety with more penetration on the defensive line. and that was before the bye. And then post-bye, they returned to a more two-high-centric world with greater front diversity. So two high safeties, sort of protecting the deeper part of the field instead of the one high safety that they were sort of more so leaning on and trying to do more disguises pre-bye, which you would think that if you're doing less disguises, having to disguise less, it's probably more simple. And that seems to be, that's at least Sam Holman's opinion on the way the Packers are going to simplify this defense as they did later in the season. Then to finish it off here, there's a lot more tweets for this thread, but I don't have time to go through all of them, but I'll link the thread below if you want to watch these videos. Follow Sam as well because he puts out some interesting Packers content. But he says this: based on this and other comments, I'm pretty convinced Matt Lafleur wants to keep that same general mindset going into next year. Mentions wanting to get everyone on the same page, getting more involved on D himself to ensure that the system isn't overly complex, plus guys can play fast. So Matt Lafleur, I'm confident in the fact that he believes that what the Packers did later in the season can sort of continue into next season. We'll need to see that happen because I had the same hope last year after watching the last game, as I already said. But if the Packers can keep that up, can sort of simplify things, and if they can sort of fix the communication issues that I think plagued the secondary, at least for the first part, more than the first part of the season last year, if they can fix all those issues, hopefully this defense can take some steps forward going into 2023. There are some more question marks on this team, on this defense. No longer having Jaron Reed on the defensive line, Dean Lowry on the defensive line. Some of these younger players like Devontae Wyatt going into year 2, he's going to have some more opportunity on defense, and I think we saw later in the year that he was starting to make some splash plays. So it's going to be fun to see what he can do, and then TJ Slayton as well will probably get a lot more snaps on defense. And I'm curious to see if Brian Gutekunst decides to add any more, defensive linemen as we get into like maybe May, June, July, sort of find those under-the-radar guys who, in the past, Brian Gutekunst has been really good at finding some players like that who are pretty cheap, who come in and have a big role in the Packers. Some of the biggest have been, Devondre Campbell a couple of years ago, Keyshawn Nixon last year, sort of more special teams. And Matt Lafleur also talked about how Keyshawn Nixon is going to get a shot at slot, and he wants to sort of keep one guy in the nickel position on defense to sort of allow that guy to sort of master that position. And so there are some question marks here on defense, but hopefully we'll see the Packers sort of continue what they did later in the season, and we'll see how the Packers decide to finalize this room, whether it's drafting some safeties, defensive linemen, finding some under-the-radar free agents as the offseason continues. But that is what I wanted to share in this video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you want to stay up to date with all Packers news, that is what this channel is for: Packers news, content, analyzing random things. So feel free to subscribe down below. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.